UFC Fight Night, Thiago Santos, Magomed Ankalaev. Welcome to the prelim card prediction video by yours truly here at Boxing MMA Picks. Of course, he goes by Zan, I go by Harris, and as usual, giving you our fight-by-fight breakdowns and analysis from that betting perspective specifically. Here to let you know which underdogs have some decent value, which bets are worth it, which bets are not worth it, and sticking around to the end of the video, you get some parlay action as well. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit the thumbs up on this video. And most importantly, we want to hear from you in the comments. Very busy card, 14 fights on this UFC Vegas 50 card. 8 of them are on the prelim. 6 of them are on the main card. So we're going to get right to work with this prelim. Starting with fight number 1, we have Tafon and Nchukwi taking on Azamat Murzakanov. For Tafon Nchukwi, he beat Mike Rodriguez in September. He's a southpaw, switch stance type of fighter. Good boxing stance, good boxing movement. Definitely mix in those kicks sporadically. Don't forget, he has some kickboxing accolades. He's a kickboxing world champion. He's 13-1 as Muay Thai fighter. So that tells you what type of striking ability he has when it comes to MMA. Pretty decent striking defense to go along with it. Decent counter puncher. Definitely put punches in combination. I'm pretty satisfied with his cardio tank, especially with him moving back up to light heavyweight. He's somebody that kind of fills it out. He was fighting at middleweight at one point, but, pretty satisfied with his cardio tank for the physical frame that he has. Look for some decent clinch / dirty boxing from him as well. It's something that I've seen him use pretty often. And I've seen him land that takedown on guys who can't really defend it. He averages just over 1 takedown per fight in 3 fights, plus the 1 Dana White Contender Series appearance. But it does tell you that he, in some degree, can resort to that when needed. For Azamat Murzakanov, he's an undefeated Russian making his UFC debut. He competed on Dana White Contender Series back in August. Southpaw as well, pretty light on the feet, a lot of in and out movement. Look for him to use a lot of fakes, a lot of feints. He's trying to set up that counter. That seems to be his style. And that said, he's much more of a counter puncher than he is an active puncher. Uses that overhand left hook a lot, drops guys. He has power. Of the 10 pro wins that he has, 7 of them are via KO, TKO. Being Russian, you got to assume some kind of wrestling is there. But it's something that I've only seen from him when he has his opponents hurt. He's going to be somebody that's going to keep it standing. I don't know what kind of wrestling prowess he has because he hasn't really shown me it. This fight is pretty tough, though. Murzakanov, what's really important here, he's been willing to compete at heavyweight. In fact, he's had a few UFC, what was supposed to be UFC debuts, fights that were canceled, fights in the heavyweight division. While Tafon Nchukwi, like I mentioned, at one point was competing at middleweight for a bit. With that said, you got to assume Murzakanov may be the physically stronger guy in there for this light heavyweight fight. But I like Nchukwi's stand-up better. Yes, Azamat's stand-up is pretty sharp, especially his counter-punching ability. But I think Tafon Nchukwi's stand-up has a little bit more purpose to it. Murzakanov activity, it's pretty low. And again, he almost solely plays that counter-punching role. Plus, on top of that, he hasn't shown me any wrestling. Again, I don't really know if he has it or not, but he doesn't really show it to me. I look for him to have kind of the punching power advantage. I almost think of a Jan Blachowicz type of power. That said, of course, anyone can spark anyone in this weight class. But in a fight that I think is going to stay on the feet, I have to lean towards Tafon Nchukwi. I feel like he's the overall better striker. I feel like he's the more active striker. I feel like he has a little bit more intention with his strikes. And if neither of these guys hurt one another, I think Tafon Nchukwi wins. But both of these guys have the ability to land one fight-changing punch. I'm especially looking at that 6-inch reach advantage for Tafon Nchukwi as well. So I see him here as the underdog. I understand why that is. I understand why Murzakanov may be the pick for a lot of people, but I think Tafon Nchukwi's stand-up is maybe a little bit better here, a little bit sharper at the very least. So again, I'm going to Tafon Nchukwi.
Yeah, this is a good fight to start the card off. When you look at both of these guys, they had a similar career in that they both were heavyweights. Tafon Nchukwi was a heavyweight Fought up the limit 265. Even had a catchweight fight with fellow UFC fighter at 225 pounds, William Knight. So he's been in the heavyweight division. He went down obviously to 185. Now he's going up to 205. So this is a good matchup between two fighters that I think this is going to be. I think someone's getting knocked out in this fight. Now I disagree in that I think Azamat has the better striking. I think his footwork. I think he's gonna have really good footwork in this fight versus Tafon, who's kind of slow, plotty with his movements in the ring, while Azamat's moving in and out. And I like that about him. I like his one-shot power that he has. And he 100% has wrestling. This guy, he trains with Yakovlev, the UFC guy. K Dojo. I think they're in. It's a bunch of Russians. Yeah, click on that. Look, this is another set of Russians that are going to make their marks soon. But this is a team of Russians, a couple of other countries in the mix, but predominantly Russian. And these guys can wrestle. These guys can strike. These guys are well-rounded fighters. They can submit you as well. Yeah, I like Azamat in this spot. I think he will get this fight to the ground. I think he will go for takedowns here, or even just get a finish. I believe he has the better striking, in and out movements, the striking to get that knockout. So I like Azamat to get the win here in the first fight.
All right, let's take a look at fight 2, Kris Moutinho versus Guido Cannetti. Guido Cannetti, he's on a 3-fight losing streak. We see his record there, 8 wins, 7 losses. He lost to Manny Martinez in August. 42 years old at this point. He's introduced as a striker, pretty good movement still, even at his age. You know, he's going to give you a style where he fights from the outside, pretty light on his feet, good kicks, you know, all of those types of things. You know, willing to engage if he is backed up a little bit too much. So look for him to kind of have that heart to kind of go for it, even if you are putting the pressure on him. And I mean, he's somebody that can surprise you. Yes, he's 42 years old, but he has some speed. He has some pop. You know, he's one of those opponents, although beatable in some ways, you have to be very sharp while fighting him. Otherwise, he's going to capitalize on that and take advantage of those situations. Kris Moutinho, of course, we know as the fighter who lost to Sean O'Malley back in July, gave him a pretty good fight, or I guess didn't go away as easily as some thought he would. He's a southpaw on the feet as well, a diverse striker. He's going to actively use both hands and feet. Mixes it up pretty well, including some clinch work. He does have pop in his hands. He has pretty good speed on the feet, pretty sound technically as well. Puts that forward pressure on. We saw that in the O'Malley fight. Just puts that forward pressure, whether he's getting hit or not. You know, he's going to look to close the distance. He's going to look to come forward. You know, someone who's tough, right? Again, took on everything that O'Malley had to offer, and he was still standing. I think it was Herb Dean that was reffing that fight. That fight really only stopped because O'Malley was so far ahead. And Moutinho was getting beat up. Let's, you know, keep it fair. But at the same time, he was still standing. He wasn't really wobbly. Fight was just ended due to accumulation in a lot of ways. You know, when you look at Guido Cannetti, 42 years old, you got to think he could be on his way out. You know, we know the fanfare that Moutinho got after his effort against O'Malley as a last-minute fill-in. So it looks like they're giving Kris Moutinho a chance here in a winnable fight. Not to say it's going to be easy, but it is winnable. Like I said, the Manny Martinez fight versus Guido Cannetti, it could be a blueprint for Moutinho. And in some ways, I expect the fight to go similarly. I think Moutinho is going to put that forward pressure on, and if nothing else, sort of win a decision based on that. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if either of these guys hurt one another either. But again, I look for Kris Moutinho, forward pressure. Guido Cannetti fights from the outside. It's not going to look good in the eyes of the judges. Even if it is a 50-50 fight, I think Moutinho will get the nod based on that forward pressure. So that's where I'm going. I'm going Kris Moutinho. Neither of these guys are reliable picks. Moutinho obviously getting a lot of love due to his effort against O'Malley in terms of the betting line, minus 150. But I'm going to bite on it. Kris Moutinho is my pick.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I should just go with Kris, the Can Crusher Moutinho. I should take him to win this fight. Cannetti's 42. So obviously age is a big factor. Man, it's tough because Cannetti as well, he looks good in the first round, and then as the fight goes on, he kind of drowns out, slows down, while Kris Moutinho has shown that he can kind of keep that pace going throughout the fight. Now, Kris Moutinho, though, his power is kind of questionable. I don't think he has that much pop. He might have knockouts. I believe he does have knockouts, but I don't think he has that much pop here to give Cannetti that big of an issue with the power and the striking. And that's going to be his area here to win the fight, is with that striking. It's tough because Moutinho, he marches you down. And if Cannetti gets tired after the first round, Moutinho is going to be in a perfect spot to just outstrike him the rest of the way, win a decision. When you look at Cannetti, though, he's 42, but like Harris said, he's in good shape. This guy moves well. Only issue is his cardio for me. I think he's the better wrestler in this fight. I love his leg kicks. I think he has some of the best leg kicks actually in the UFC. Good power with the leg kicks, and he dedicates shots to the leg. So it's a tough fight because I actually think that Cannetti is the better fighter when I look at the skills on paper. But the age and the fact that he slows down, and then Moutinho, we know that he can go at a pace. Now, his fight versus Sean O'Malley, he's getting credit for taking a big beating, showing that this guy has resilience and he can take a shot. But he's been finished. This guy's been finished 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, he's been finished in all of his losses. 2 rear naked chokes. 1 guillotine, 1 rear naked, KO, elbow, and he lost by standing. He got finished with a standing TKO, so the ref must have jumped in. But that was O'Malley, obviously. So this guy, yeah, he could take a shot, but he's been finished. So it's tough. Again, this is low level. This is not UFC level. I don't think these guys should be here. I got to make a pick. I should go Moutinho because he's the younger guy. But I'm going to roll the dice with the underdog here. Guido Cannetti giving us one last win here. I'm not impressed with this Moutinho guy. I won't be surprised if he wins. He should win. He's 29 years old. But his skill level is really low. And you look at his fighters that he's fought. He's fought a bunch of cans. So I'm not really feeling this guy at all. He's a can crusher. He came in short notice against O'Malley. The UFC's giving him a favor, fighting a 42-year-old. I think it could backfire here. So I'm going to go Guido Cannetti, pulling off an upset here. In a fight that I wouldn't bet, I think it's really close, but I'm going to go Guido Cannetti getting the first 2 rounds.
Fight number 3, Dalcha Lungiambula taking on Cody Brundage. Dalcha Lungiambula, he lost to Marc-Andre Barriault in September. Patient striker, almost hesitant striker. He has that judo background, keep that in mind. Not a wrestling background, but he will show some explosive wrestling and takedown attempts at the very least. We'll try to clinch against the cage as well. He's going to try to use that physical strength that he has in this middleweight division. I mean, you can see his physique. Definitely a big guy. Explosive bursts on the feet at times. He definitely puts his all into his strikes. But, unsurprisingly, cardio is an issue with his physique as well as with how much he puts into his strikes. So you're looking at somebody who's pretty dangerous in round 1, but as the fight goes on, becomes much less of a threat. Cody Brundage lost to Nick Maximov in September. Decent stand-up. He trains at Factory X. So, you think about guys like Dustin Jacoby, Alex Hernandez, and their style of striking. I'm not going to say Brundage has it, but I will say Brundage kind of tries to emulate it in some ways. Definitely not the same level of striker as those guys, though. But the stand-up is decent, right? It is a lot of stick and move. He does keep his hands down, kind of a la Dustin Jacoby type of style. A lot of level changes and fakes from him because essentially he's a wrestler. One knock on him with his striking is that he does throw 1 strike at a time, doesn't really put combinations together. But like I said, he is a wrestler. The Nick Maximov fight was pretty telling, though. We do have to give credit to Nick Maximov's level of wrestling, but Brundage did show a decent ability not to take too much damage, but he was definitely out-wrestled in that fight. So it doesn't tell me that he's a very high level of wrestler, but he is said to be a wrestler. I don't really see him as somebody who actively tries to get the fight to the ground. When he does attempt it, the entries are solid though. He can land the takedown. He can have decent top control. So he's not, completely useless or completely fraud from that wrestling perspective. And similarly to Dalcha Lungiambula, cardio is a bit of a concern. I've definitely seen him slow down. That might work in his favor because I've seen him use wrestling a little bit more once he has slowed down. So let's see how this one plays out. I mean, I don't really like either of these fighters from a betting perspective, but I do trust Brundage's ability to win a round a little bit more than I trust Lungiambula's. It is easy to back Dalcha up. You back him up, you shoot for a takedown. Even if you don't get it, you can get some points against the cage in some clinch action. I expect Brundage to back him up. Again, threaten the takedowns, tire him out. As long as he avoids that big shot coming back, mainly in round one, I think he can have an opportunity to cruise here. I see him here as the underdog. Again, I understand it. These are very tough fights on this card because, a lot of low level fighting, to be completely honest. But I'm going to go with another underdog. I got Cody Brundage as my pick, just a more reliable pick in terms of the options that he presents, specifically with the wrestling.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Cody definitely has he has that NCAA wrestling. He's a good wrestler. This guy can wrestle. Dalcha has that judo background. So that it's not going to really cancel each other out, but it is one area that they both can thrive in this fight because Dalcha can be taken down. However, he does have pretty good takedown defense. He's going to be the shorter guy as well, so that's going to help him with his center of gravity. He has really, really strong hips. He's a really, really strong guy. It's going to be hard for the wrestler to get his wrestling going when the guy you're wrestling is that much stronger and also has an idea of what to do because obviously he trains MMA. So it's a tough fight because I think Cody is a lot of value in this spot because he could take him down. Cody has decent stand-up. And again, Cody could take your back. He could choke you out. I was watching one fight. I was impressed with how he took the fighter's back, had the hooks in, got the choke. I was impressed. Once he got him down and that was open, he went for it and got it. So he does have good jiu-jitsu. Not only just wrestling, he does have really good jiu-jitsu or good jiu-jitsu to finish the fight. Dalcha, concerning is that he's not an active striker. He has a slow pace with the striking, but when he does throw, it's heavy. So yeah, it's a tough fight because on paper, I could say Cody's a good pick on paper. As an underdog here to pull this off, he needs a win. But there's something about Cody where he looks good. He looks good, and then something happens. He gets hit in his face or something, and then the fight just changes. So I think Dalcha is going to eventually land something on him, and it's just going to change the outcome of the fight. I think Dalcha's hips, his strength is going to be an issue for Cody to get his wrestling going consistently. And in his last fight, Dalcha showed he went the 3 rounds, right? So against a fighter, what's his name, the Canadian,
Marc-Andre.
Yeah, he went 3 rounds, and in the 3rd round, yeah, he was tired, but his cardio is definitely improving. So it looks like he realized where his area of improvement needs to be. So I'm gonna go with Dalcha in a fight that is tough to feel confident with because obviously he has a slow pace in terms of striking, so he can lose rounds because of his inactivity. But I just think at some point this guy, even in the 2nd, 3rd round in his fight with Burial, he was throwing heavy shots and Cody doesn't have the best striking defense. And once he gets hit, I think that's just going to turn the fight around. And I think Dalcha is going to pull this off. But again, I don't feel confident here with these 2 guys.
4th fight, we have Sabina Mazo versus Miranda Maverick, 2 women in the flyweight division that are on 2 fight losing streaks. 2 women that are also 2 of the younger women on the MMA or on the UFC roster, I should say. I think they're both 24 years old. Sabina Mazo, she lost to Maria Agapova in October. She's a lengthy kickboxer, more of a Muay Thai fighter, I should say. Has that leg heavy attack, uses all of her reach. The striking's pretty clean. Boxing is decent as well. And my one biggest gripe on her is that she needs to do a better job of turning up the pace, turning up the aggression. She kind of cruises her ways through fights, doesn't really have that change of gear, change of pace. She almost moves at a sparring pace. and doesn't really turn it up from there. That's something that could work against her, especially going up against Miranda Maverick. Important to note, she is a BJJ brown belt, so not completely one-dimensional, although, again, she is somebody that's going to keep it on the feet. Miranda Maverick, on the other hand, is going to try to go to the ground. She did lose to Erin Blanchfield in December, got completely out-wrestled in that fight. The stand-up is okay. She is willing to engage. She is willing to throw combinations. She does have good activity, has a good pace, likes to come forward as well. Like I said, her strength is on the ground, though. She has good ground game, good grappling, BJJ brown belt as well. Great pressure and control when she is on top, good ground and pound as well, and pretty strong physically. Of course, being a shorter fighter gives her that lower center of gravity, gives her, a little bit more strength on the ground as she kind of fills up the weight more than a taller, lankier Sabina Mazo on the other hand. But like I said, her last fight did definitely expose a couple of holes. Couldn't really handle the forward pressure put on her. Couldn't really defend the takedown, albeit to a good wrestler in Erin Blanchfield, and couldn't find her takedown at all. I do expect both fighters to be hungry. I do expect both fighters to play to their strengths. For Maverick, I can see her relying on activity on the feet as well as takedown attempts. For Mazo, I can see her relying on her striking. I think she's the better striker. Her distance control and avoiding the takedown based on distance control and potentially piecing up Miranda Maverick on the feet here. When I think about how this fight will play out, I do think Mazo will be able to keep it on the feet. I understand, Maverick has that takedown ability, but just not too impressed with Miranda Maverick. I think, she's somebody who maybe needs a little bit more time before she becomes a potential contender in this division. Sabina Mazo has 4 inches in height. She has 5 inches in reach. She's a long striker that naturally fights from distance. And I think that's going to give Maverick a hard time coming in. The biggest thing that could go against Mazo is that, again, doesn't quite know how to turn it up. So I can see Miranda Maverick just turning up the pace, Mazo not really being able to handle it, Maverick getting her against the cage, and then eventually bringing this fight to the ground. But like I said, Maverick hasn't really been too impressive for me either. So I see this one being a boring fight for the most part. If nothing else, it's 50-50, and Maverick at minus 310 is insane. So I'm going with Sabina Mazo. I think she is going to be able to keep it on the feet. I think she's going to use her length, use her reach, keep it at a distance, fight from the outside, and potentially piece up Maverick on the feet here. So Sabina Mazo is going to be my pick.
Absolutely not. No way, man. No way am I going to let this one go, man. No way. This is not 50-50. Miranda Maverick versus no way. Oh my God. Listen, who was that girl that took down Mazo like 3-4 times? Was it Alexa Davis? Alexis Davis took her down 3 times. This is going to be a unanimous decision. Miranda Maverick, I believe, is going to get the takedowns. If not, she's going to hold her against the cage. She's going to be the stronger girl in the clinch. Her fight with Erin Blanchfield, you shouldn't even look at that fight when you're studying this one. Erin Blanchfield is the real deal. Sabina Mazo is not. I'm confident here. Miranda Maverick, parlay piece. I understand why the odds are like this. She's just gonna be the physically stronger girl in there. Mazo will have the striking advantage, but how much of an advantage when you really look at the advantages Miranda has? And Miranda doesn't gas as well. She's gonna be well schooled. She needs a win. She got robbed in the Macy fight. She lost to Blanchfield. She needs to get back on track, right? So I think the UFC is setting her up with a fighter that can't handle her grappling to get her back in the win column here. Because again, she's a young girl, right? So she's definitely someone the UFC can build, right? And so I'm going to go Miranda Maverick. I think she's a more well-rounded fighter. I don't think this is 50-50 at all. I think it's more 75-80 to 20. But yeah, I'm going to go Miranda Maverick to get it done. Unanimous decision.
All right, fair enough. Let's move on to the fifth fight. Damon Jackson, Kamuela Kirk. Damon Jackson beat Charles Hossa in October. Decent boxing, decent kickboxing, not really the cleanest technically, but he does have decent combinations. Suspect takedown defense, I'll highlight that right away, although he does have grappling ability on the ground and he's willing to use it. His wrestling did look a bit more intentional in his last fight versus Charles Hossa. He'll grind it out against the cage for as long as he needs to in order to land that takedown. You know, active on the ground. He has heart. He has cardio. He has aggressiveness. Again, we see he lands 2.5 takedowns per fight. 33% accuracy, again, isn't always a bad thing. It does tell me that he goes for it in addition to landing 2.5. So, look for him to resort to that, if not relying on that aggressiveness on the feet as well. For Kamuela Kirk, he's on a 3-fight win streak. He beat Makwan Amirkhani in June. That was his debut. Tall, long featherweight. We see him here, same height, but will have a 4-inch reach advantage. Comfortable on the feet, composed, pretty patient, good kicks, good long jab. Works behind that jab to set up his other punches. On the ground, he's good at technique, improving position, mixing in the ground and pound, keeping his opponents down. Looks like he has decent takedown defense as well. So it's going to be interesting to see, can Damon Jackson bring this fight to the mat? I will keep it short, though. I do like Kirk here. I feel like he has maybe the higher striking IQ. I feel like he has better striking technique as well. I also feel like his ground ability with wrestling, with takedown defense, with grappling, I think it's more than enough to sort of nullify the perceived advantage that Damon Jackson would have there. Damon Jackson does have that pace, though, right? And that's something that not a lot of people can handle. Kamuela Kirk isn't really the most active striker. Even in that Amirkhani fight, times where Amirkhani looked completely gassed, Kirk didn't really step on the gas pedal in terms of showing some kind of activity on the feet. So I can definitely see Damon Jackson just outpacing him for 3 rounds. But something about Kamuela Kirk, I think he has the ability, and it's more so about the intangibles that he would more so need to correct. So I'm going with Kamuela Kirk on this one. I think he's slightly better on the feet. I think he nullifies most of the ground game, and I think he pulls this one out.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, this is actually one of the harder fights for me to decide here, because when I look at Kamuela Kirk, he's looking good. His striking, he has good counters. I think he's gonna have the striking advantage in this fight. He also has really good underrated jiu-jitsu. This guy is really good off his back, so if he does get taken down, he definitely knows what to do here. And I think he has the power advantage, right? So these are things that I look at here in this fight, because I know that his opponent's going to try to get him to the mat. That's ultimately what's going to happen here. His opponent's going to try to get him down. With Kamuela Kirk, though, I'm not impressed with his cardio, and I think that's going to be an issue in this fight. The striking definitely advantage goes to Kamuela Kirk. However, the grappling, I think Damon Jackson can dictate the wrestling. I think he has the wrestling advantage to pretty much get the fight where it goes. However, Jackson has chin issues. So Kamuela Kirk, with the good counters, with his accurate striking, he can knock him out cold. Damon Jackson has been knocked out. And that's my biggest concern in this fight. If he doesn't get knocked down in the first round, though, I believe that as the fight goes on, that Damon Jackson cardio, that pace, I think it's going to be too much for Kirk as the fight goes on. So if Jackson gets out of the first round, I think this is his fight. Takedowns will be a lot easier. He's going to be able to ride a lot of top control. And Damon Jackson is really good in jiu-jitsu as well. So I like Damon Jackson. I'm going to go off his wrestling, avoid the knockout in the round 1, and utilize that cardio advantage that you have here as the fight goes on.
Fight number 6, Trevin Jones, Javid, Basharat. Trevin Jones lost to Said Yakub Kakramanov in August. A pretty well-rounded fighter otherwise, good stand-up, he's a southpaw, good kickboxing, decent hands, good movement, good combinations. Has a pretty consistent pace to him. He's willing to engage, has power as well. Good wrestling. He's a BJJ black belt on top of that. But what's interesting with him, and I'll finish with him on this note. A lot of his losses, as well as a number of his wins, are via split decision. And that's a little concerning. I mean, that tells you that he's going to be somebody that's always in a close fight. We see here split decision losses, a few of them here, split decision wins, a few of them, split decision losses, split, split, split. So he's going to be somebody that's going to make it a close fight. And that could be a little bit concerning in terms of betting on him. But he's somebody that's also made me money in the past, so I can't be too mad at that. He's facing Javid Basharat, undefeated newcomer from Dana White Contender Series. He competed in October, 100% finish rate of his 11 wins, 5 TKOs, 6 submissions. He's a switch stance fighter. Looks like he has a pretty well-rounded game, very clean stand-up, good striking diversity, good calf kicks, good in and out movement. I believe he has a Taekwondo background. That's going to lead to him having some pretty decent footwork on top of all of that. And, I've seen a decent ground game out of him, good on top, active ground and pound, good at positional improvements. He can find the submission, of course. He has 6 submissions to his name. The only knock on Basharat is his resume. I mean, he's only faced really 3 guys with a decent record. Let's just kind of run through some of his opponents here. So he did beat an undefeated fighter on Dana White Contender Series. Before that, an 11-1 fighter. On his resume, he also has a 5-0 fighter. But outside of that, 2-2, 4-4, 2-2, 3-3, 0-6, 0-2, and I didn't even mention the 2-39 person that he faced. Not somebody who has legitimate wins on his resume outside of his Dana White Contender Series performance. So that could create a lot of question marks here. I do expect another close fight for Trevin Jones here, potentially another split decision type of fight. I think these guys have very similar strengths as one another. But I want to roll the dice on the newcomer. I like his ability to avoid the danger on the feet with his in and out movement, with his footwork, how complete his game is as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Trevin Jones pulls it off. Again, he's been a great underdog pick for me in the past. But I do, based on ability, I do have to go with the newcomer, Javid Basharat.
Okay. Yo, what's that flag on Javid's name there? What flag is that?
Is that Georgia, where Roman Delete is from?
This doesn't make sense because I was studying this guy before for the Contender Series. One of the best fights, one of the best showings actually for a newcomer on that show. But at the weigh-in, he was fighting an Israeli fighter, and the Israeli fighter at the weigh-in called him a terrorist. So like, there's a lot of hype on that where it was like a racist. Yeah, so I thought he was from Afghanistan.
So maybe let's stick with that.
I don't know why that flag is different there. I thought he was from Afghanistan because I remember there was a thing with the Afghanistan and the Israeli guy said to him straight up, "You're a terrorist," and they just went and then he killed the guy in the ring, like he beat him up pillar to post, like from the beginning to the end. He got beat beginning to the end of that fight. So yeah, this is a tough fight. I like how you mentioned Javid's the competition he's fighting. It's really low level. We know Trevin Jones has been in there with some killers. Big win on his record is the Timur Valiev, but I believe that was overturned. And also the Mario Batista fights that he was losing these fights, but he has that power. He has that equalizer. But I think in this fight, there's something special about Javid. Like he's good everywhere. His striking, he's gonna have really good movement. And I think he has good wrestling, good grappling. I think he's going to get this done. I think he could be better everywhere aside from the power. And I think that's enough to get the win here. Again, he has to be careful, but he has good striking defense. He doesn't really get hit flush a lot. So he's definitely aware in the striking area. Yeah, I like Javid here to get it done. I might put it on a parlay piece, but obviously Trevin Jones is Trevin Jones, and it could be anybody in that ring. One shot, this guy's putting guys out like Mario Batista and Timur Valiev. These guys are on a much higher level at this point than Javid is. So there's a good chance he can knock him out too. But I think Javid, better fighter, young guy, should get it done.
Fight number 7, JJ Aldrich versus Gillian Robertson. We see Gillian Robertson as the favorite here. I think she's getting a bit of extra love from her last performance. She got back in the win column, beating Priscilla Cachoeira back in December. I mean, we know her MO at this point. She's going to try to take the fight to the ground. On the feet, I guess you could say she's improving, but for the most part, she's going to try to keep it at distance until she finds that moment to shoot in. When she gets you down, of course, good top control, good submissions. We know she's a BJJ black belt. We know she's a high level grappler. So she's not somebody who you want on top of you. For JJ Aldrich, though, definitely going to be much better on the feet. She beat Vanessa Demopoulos in August. That fight wasn't really fair. Demopoulos is a 115er, fighting in the 125 division for that one. Decent pace with JJ Aldrich. She likes to come forward. She's not afraid to engage, kind of, eat a shot to give a shot type of thing. I don't think that'll apply in this fight. She will throw multiple punches at a time. She has a lot of toughness, decent left straight down the middle as well. Primarily a boxer, and I think that's very important. The fact that she doesn't really throw too many kicks, because I think that's what Gillian Robertson looks for. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it may have been Cachoeira that threw a kick when Gillian Robertson got her down. I could be mistaken there. I have to watch that one back. But for JJ Aldrich, she will potentially use some clinch work against the cage as well. I've seen her land a takedown. I've seen her use some ground and pound, despite her numbers being less than 1 takedown per fight. I don't think she'll go to that or resort to that in any way, shape, or form. I think she will resort to just her boxing. And essentially, this fight is going to be about whether or not Gillian Robertson can take Aldrich down or not. Aldrich, I think, only has about 65-ish% takedown defense on paper. So not impressive. If Robertson can get her down, she can lock in submission, or she can just score points on top. Aldrich hasn't really been taken down in her last several fights, though, albeit much different level of or type of competition than a Gillian Robertson. But I want to side with the boxer here. A boxing stance usually gives you a pretty decent takedown, pretty decent defense against the takedown, because you don't really expose your legs. You don't really allow yourself to be taken down with how your body is balanced. So I want to side with Aldrich here. Robertson, for the most part, has a hard time taking people down. And I think Aldrich will be able to sort of stay safe enough down there, not like a Priscilla Cachoeira, maybe if she is taken down. And on the feet, I think it's a complete mismatch. I can see Robertson getting pieced up here. So I'm looking at JJ Aldrich, 2-fight win streak, probably looking to create a little bit of momentum behind her name. And I think Robertson is a beatable opponent for her. So again, another underdog for me on this one, but I'm going to side with JJ Aldrich.
Yeah, this is a tricky one, man. We got a Royce Gracie fighter in Gillian Robertson, with that no striking ability, just going for the takedown, versus a Chuck Liddell type fighter in JJ Aldrich, looking to sprawl and brawl, keep it on the feet. Aldrich has the awareness of the wrestling like Liddell. So this is a close fight here, because it's a matter of who gets their fight, who's able to dictate the fight their way. Their styles are so different. We got a Royce Gracie, a Chuck Liddell. So we got 2 completely different fighters. So this is a really hard fight to decide who's gonna be able to implement what they want to do in that ring. I'm gonna make it quick because female fights are out there, right? Anything can happen in these fights, no matter how much you look at it, no matter how much you study. It's a bit different because I don't think it's as evolved as the men's, where in the females anything can happen. So I'm gonna go JJ Aldrich. I just think that she's gonna be able to keep it on the feet a bit. My concern obviously is Gillian getting that takedown. She can get that submission. JJ has been submitted before, but that was years ago, and she has dealt with black belts, and she has avoided submissions in these fights. So hopefully she can avoid that. She might get taken down first round. If she survives that, though, as the fight goes on, she should be able to keep it on the feet here, and piece up Gillian. Gillian is a hoist Gracie on the feet. She is horrible, 0 striking, and JJ has probably a bigger advantage on the feet than Gillian has on the ground, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go JJ Aldrich in a fight that I wouldn't recommend betting because, again, we got completely different styles, Gracie versus Liddell. But I'm going to go Liddell. I'm going to go JJ Aldrich to sprawl and brawl to victory.
Final fight of the prelims, we have Matthew Semelsberger versus AJ Fletcher. For Semelsberger, he beat Martin Sano in September. Decent stand-up, solid kickboxing, solid hands as well. Pretty technical, picks his shots really well, good combinations with the hands, good striking defense, gets his kicks in there as well. And he's shown me some pretty good counter punching as well as the power. So somebody who's pretty complete in the stand-up. I like what I see from him in his MMA stand-up. He puts the pressure on as well. I do expect him to be coming forward. And I mean, he has shown me some takedown defense in the past as well, which will be important in this fight. Only 4 UFC fights, but 100% takedown defense thus far. Only about 1 takedown per fight. But again, 100% takedown accuracy. So, you know, it looks like somebody that has a pretty well-rounded game, but especially on the feet, I do like what he has to offer. AJ Fletcher is an undefeated Dana White Contender Series fighter. He last competed in August. A lot of movement around the ring, some switch stance. The striking looks good. It looks clean. Feints, level changes, you know, light on the feet, things like that. But a good wrestler, good takedowns. I don't think he has any formal wrestling, but, you know, pretty good takedowns, some good groundwork from what I've seen from him. I think Semelsberger will have a significant advantage in reach here. You know, a few inches in height, but about 8 inches in reach. I think that's going to work wonders for him on the feet, especially with his ability on the feet. I've seen Fletcher in some compromised positions on the feet. You know, he's been smart enough to kind of land the takedown when those situations arise, but it's the fact that he gets himself into those situations that could be a little bit concerning for him. Fletcher also, to me at least, looks a bit small for the division. I don't know how true that 5'10" is. He kind of has that Matt Serra look to him, where, you know, he looks like he's somebody that could or should trim down and instead of being a welterweight, maybe fight at 155. I'd be very curious to see how he looks there. But I'll keep it short. I like Semelsberger here. I think it's a very tough debut for AJ Fletcher. Yes, he's undefeated, but I'm not all the way sold on him yet. I think Semelsberger's takedown defense will be good enough. I think his striking will be better, and specifically his reach will give him a lot of advantages in this fight on the feet. So I'm going Matthew Semelsberger for my final fight of the prelims.
Yeah. This fight, don't be surprised if AJ Fletcher comes out here and just starches Semelsberger. Don't be surprised. This Fletcher guy has that Matt Serra, Sean Shirk look. More Sean Shirk, because this guy is built. He's strong. And one thing he's good at is when you're throwing, he ducks under, gets that takedown. He has ruthless ground and pound. He does have power to knock you out on the feet as well. But how long can he wrestle for? I'm not seeing many third round fights. So he hasn't been in the third round many times. Yeah, so he's finishing these guys first, second round. He has 1 unanimous. Okay, that's the third round. Yeah, so he's not really being extended in a fight, war of attrition type of fight that Semelsberger is used to. Where I could see Semelsberger losing the first round, but as the fight goes on, I think his stand-up is a bit more technical. And plus he has that reach as well. But this is a fight that you got to be careful. AJ Fletcher has all the value. If you're going to make a bet, like I probably would make a bet on AJ Fletcher because of the value here. I think this is 50-50. Because if AJ Fletcher can dictate the fight with his wrestling, again, he has power. He could also knock out Semelsberger if he lands that shot. He does have that power. But if he can neutralize 2 rounds, he could win this fight. This is a really, really close fight. Both guys have big paths to win this fight. But I'm just going with Matt Semelsberger fighting the better guys. The more experienced guy And as the fight goes on, his striking, the length, he might have a bit too much as the fight goes on if AJ can't utilize that wrestling. So I'm gonna go, Matthew Semelsberger as well in a fight that is tough. You don't want to really go in on this fight. The odds are not worth it because all the values on AJ Fletcher here. I really think he could win this fight. I was just gonna pick Fletcher, but something's telling me Semelsberger. There's levels, and maybe this might be too early for Fletcher. But tough debut. I'm gonna go Matthew Semelsberger to get it done.
Let's take it to Vegas. Very tricky card. I will say this is a difficult card, and I wouldn't suggest going too hard on this one. But let's take a look at maybe some underdog picks on that prelim card that you're potentially thinking has the best shot at winning.
Listen, you have like a bunch of underdogs. Let me hear you first there, buddy. You got so many underdogs today.
For sure, for sure. So I would say for me, I like Tafon and Nchukwi's chances in terms of how I feel their striking could match up. Again, Murzakanov, not the most active striker, more so waits for that counter. So Tafon and Nchukwi could take advantage there. And I mean, I understand the stylistic dangers of it, but I really like JJ Aldrich in this spot. I think if Gillian Robertson did not fight her last fight, Aldrich probably would be the minus 150 favorite. So I'm going with JJ Aldrich as well as Tafon and Nchukwi as the two underdogs that I think has the best shot at winning.
Yeah, man. Gillian's getting a lot of love for beating Priscilla Cachoeira, right? So this is tough, but I'm gonna have to lean towards Guido or JJ. I'll have to pick one. I'll go JJ Aldrich as my underdog selection.
All right, JJ Aldrich it is. And then in terms of any kind of favorites or parlay pieces or anything that you're considering for this prelim card?
Yeah, parlay piece wise. Let me go with Javid Basharat, Miranda Maverick, and Azamat Murzakanov.
All right, so those three fights will pay plus 244. $100 will return $344 for our bigger bettors. $250 will return $860. For myself, again, a bit of a difficult premium card here. So I am going to have to take a chance or two in terms of putting a parlay together. Again, I feel good about JJ Aldrich. I'm gonna repeat that pick there in terms of some parlay piece. And I know you expressed the dangers of the newcomer, but I'm feeling Matthew Semelsberger on this one. I think he's in a good spot. I think it's a tough debut for AJ Fletcher. And like you said, it could be levels to it, although I definitely understand the caution, AJ Fletcher's chances of winning. But either way, those two fights would be $100 to return $304 or $250 to return $760. So we are going to wrap it up on that note. Of course, 8 fights on this prelim card. Let us know how you feel in the comments. Make sure you hit the thumbs up on this video, and most importantly, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Like I said, we want to hear from you in the comments how you feel about our picks. We're all over the place today in terms of being on either side of the fence. So let us know what picks you guys are looking at, what parlay pieces you guys are looking at, as well as which underdog you feel has the best shot at winning. Officially signing off, we are Boxing MMA Picks. He goes by the name of Zan. I go by the name of Harris. This has been the UFC Fight Night, Thiago Santos versus Magomed Ankalaev prelim card prediction video. So for UFC Vegas 50, in our usual fashion, let's get this money.
Let's do it.